Hello everyone. Today we're going to talk about whether or not you should outsource your MVP project. So there's pretty much two schools of thoughts about this, and I was talking about this with my co-founder, and we seem to have also kind of different point of views on that as well. So really there's two schools of thought. MVPs are better developed in-house, and there's like pros and cons to that, which we're going to talk about today. Or MVPs are better if you outsource them. So let's start looking at basically both options. If you build an MVP in-house, the advantages there would be speed of delivery and iteration, because the team is hopefully sitting in the same office or the same room. You gain a lot in speed. Any clarifications, any miscommunications, anything that might cause a developer to not understand the requirements correctly or not understand the concept correctly can be fixed instantly, and therefore that will affect speed and delivery. So meaning the team can deliver more iteratively, and it will be the feedback loops will be rather closer, especially if you can check on them on a daily or a weekly basis versus outsourcing. The learning as a result is faster. You deliver faster, you iterate faster, so you can learn faster, and you can build more MVPs. And let's say by a lean startup methodology, you can fail faster. Therefore, your learnings will increase over time. And the communication is better as well. There's very little room for misinterpretation, or even when there is misinterpretation, you can tackle it on the spot. The language barrier is non-existent or very little. You may hire someone whose English or German is not like their native language. However, you can fix it by clarifying and literally sitting face to face with them. So these are the three advantages really for building MVPs in-house. The disadvantages are when you don't have anyone to do it. So the scenario, the positive scenario, let's say, assumes that you have a team, you have a partner, you have some developers, you have someone that can do it. In that way, that would be faster. But if you don't, either you need to go and hire someone, or you need to get some approvals from different departments within your company, and get the right people, and that will take time. So if you don't have anyone to do it, obviously it will slow down the process. If you work in a bigger company, the process for approving a project or budgets take weeks, if not months, if not quarters. And if you're a startup and you need to hire, I've been in that position before when we were hiring a technical co-founder for a previous startup, and it's rather difficult to convince someone to quit Google or to quit their job in a big tech company and come work for you, especially if you don't have a track record. So that might be a bit challenging. And also another cost is the opportunity cost. So if you're pulling resources from your company that, let's say, need to work for production critical projects, or they're already generating a lot of value for the business, and not only you're not generating any more value with the same resources, not only you're paying their salaries, but there's also the opportunity cost, right? These developers could have been used for scaling an existing product or maintaining an existing product, and so on and so forth. So there's that opportunity cost that, this is true, especially if you work in a bigger company, you need to justify to your stakeholders. Whereas with outsourcing, so shifting to the outsourcing side, the pros, generally lower cost, even though it really depends. So I would put a big asterisk in the lower cost part. Developer prices and rates and compensations are increasing worldwide. So even when you outsource, you don't necessarily get a much better deal, if at all, depending on what specialty you're hiring for, and what skill sets you're looking for. But that could be a realistic advantage. The other one is flexible hiring. So you're not committing to hiring someone new to build something for 3 months and then have them let go after the project is finished, or if the project is not successful. Whereas with outsourcing, you have that flexibility, meaning you can hire them temporarily, and then if the project becomes viable, then you can hire them on a more long-term basis. So that would be number 2. So you have that flexibility, not just in kind of hiring them temporarily, but also turning that temporary relationship into something more long-term if things work out. And we've seen this at SoftUp quite a lot, where most of our projects start as a MVP or proof of concept, and then when the project is successful, we build a team around the initial developer or the initial smaller team that existed, and then we carry out the project in the long term. And the other, let's say the third advantage for outsourcing would be some sort of unique skill set. So if your company currently is only specialized, let's say, in React or JavaScript frameworks, but for some reason you want to build your backend in Go or Ruby on Rails, you're better off hiring someone who has a lot of experience with a tech stack, and there would probably be experts in screening candidates, or they already have available candidates who have 5 or 10 years of experience in that domain, versus you who might not be able to screen correctly for this type of profile. So if there's a technology that you need in your MVP, could be also like VR or blockchain technology, can be any of these type of specialty skill sets that you may not have in-house and another agency or another freelancers can have. So that could be, these are the, let's say, 3 pros for outsourcing. The cons, again, time. So it really depends. So if you have an existing relationship with an agency or a group of developers or freelancers, great. So this is not really a con. But if you don't, the process of bringing a new agency or vendor or freelancer on board can take some time. It can be as long as hiring someone, if it's a single developer, or with agencies, you need to do your research, need to do some due diligence, interview, have a few calls. This process might take anywhere between 2 to 3 months before you get started. So that's a con to consider. And the other one is speed and communication may be impaired, especially if it's a completely different time zone. So there are cases when you outsource that you're outsourcing in a different time zone, so therefore the feedback loops tend to be longer, especially if it's more than a 3 or 4 hour time zone difference, or generally because you're not sitting in the same environment, the feedback loops might be longer, especially if you don't have processes set up in place like daily stand-ups and regular sprint deliveries and demos. So if you don't have this set up in place from the beginning, that speed might be delayed, and the iteration and the learning therefore might be a bit slower. And of course, if they're not fluent in whatever language you need them to be fluent, there exists misunderstandings because of language barriers. I mean, of course, most companies who hire remotely tend to hire people who speak English, but the degree to which they have mastered the language differs from one person to another, so it's not a guarantee. But these are the 2 cons for outsourcing, and this is what you kind of need to look at when you're thinking of basically insourcing an MVP or outsourcing it. Let me know in the comment section, what do you think, what your opinion is, if you think there's more pros or more cons to one approach versus another. I'd love to hear your opinion.